Alara moved through life like a ghost, her footsteps barely disturbing the dust motes dancing in the meager sunlight of her small apartment. Her days were a quiet, predictable rhythm of work, solitary meals, and the hushed comfort of her own company. Though young, her eyes held an ancient weariness, a guardedness that kept the world at arm's length. She built walls not with bricks, but with silence and an almost palpable aversion to the messy entanglement of human connection. Her past was a locked room, its secrets echoing in the hollow spaces of her heart, preventing any true warmth from penetrating her carefully constructed solitude. Her only companions, the silent confidants of her guarded existence, were the stray cats she secretly fed in the alley behind her building. Each evening, under the cloak of twilight, she would leave out bowls of food and fresh water, watching from a distance as their sleek forms emerged from the shadows. She knew their patterns, their subtle meows, their cautious approaches. They asked for nothing but sustenance, offering in return a silent, undemanding presence. This unconditional exchange was the only affection she dared to seek, a simple transaction untainted by the complexities and potential betrayals of human relationships. A deep-seated need for this uncomplicated love, born from a past trauma, anchored her to these fleeting, feline encounters. One particularly damp, chilly evening, as she placed the food bowls, a new, tiny shadow detached itself from the gloom. It was a kitten, no bigger than her hand, its fur matted and dull, its ribs stark beneath its skin. Its eyes, rheumy and half-closed, held a desperate plea. Alara's first instinct was to retreat. Her heart, accustomed to its protective shell, recoiled from the raw vulnerability, the unspoken demand for care. Another living creature, another potential source of pain. She hesitated, her internal struggle playing out in the tense set of her shoulders. But this kitten was different. It didn't flee. It simply sat there, shivering, its faint, raspy meow a uniquely persistent siren call that slowly, agonizingly, began to chip away at her defenses. A vivid, unwelcome image flashed through her mind, a scene from a lifetime ago. Young Alara, perhaps 8 years old, her face alight with unbridled joy, cradling a fluffy ginger cat. Her beloved Whiskers, a purring bundle of pure, uncomplicated love. She remembered the whispered promise of a trusted friend, a relative perhaps, to care for Whiskers while Alara was away on a summer trip. That promise, fragile and easily broken, shattered her world. Upon her return, Whiskers was gone. Lost, they said, or perhaps given to a good home. The explanation was vague, the pain searing. The betrayal was absolute, a gaping wound that never truly healed, solidifying her distrust in human connections and cementing her affection for the animals who, she believed, would never willingly leave her. Back in the present, the persistent kitten, a tiny echo of her past, swayed on unsteady paws. With a sigh that carried the weight of years of unspoken hurt, Alara scooped the fragile creature into her arms. Its warmth, surprisingly substantial, seeped into her cold resolve. She brought it home, a small, tentative step into a world she had long avoided. Days turned into weeks. Alara, with a quiet dedication she rarely afforded herself, nursed the kitten back to health. She fed it with a dropper, cleaned its matted fur, and watched as its eyes cleared, revealing pools of intelligent green. She named him Whisper, a testament to the soft sounds he made and the quiet comfort he brought. Whisper's unwavering affection, his gentle headbutts against her hand, his purrs vibrating through her, began to mend a small, almost imperceptible part of Alara's emotional wounds. She found herself confiding in him, whispering fragments of her past aloud, testing the sound of her buried pain against his soft, accepting presence. One sunny afternoon, taking a now healthy and vibrant Whisper to a local vet for his checkup, Alara found herself navigating the crowded waiting room. As she adjusted Whisper's carrier, a familiar voice, thick with years and a strange sort of regret, sliced through the mundane chatter. "Alara, is that truly you?" She froze, her blood turning to ice. Turning slowly, she met the gaze of an older man, his eyes wide with a mix of surprise and something she couldn't quite decipher. Fear and anger, raw and immediate, surged through her. She clutched Whisper's carrier tighter, her mind racing for an escape. She tried to turn away, to lose herself in the crowd, but his voice, louder this time, stopped her dead. "Lila," he almost whispered. "It's been so long since I've seen you, Lila." The name, not her own, but one deeply intertwined with her past trauma, left Alara frozen in terror, the waiting room blurring around her. The man's voice, thick with a history Alara desperately wished to forget, hung in the air, a phantom limb of her past. "Lila," he had said, and the name, the one belonging to her childhood friend, the architect of her deepest betrayal, resonated with a chilling familiarity. This was Arthur, Lila's father, a figure who had once seemed benign but now loomed as a silent accomplice in her childhood heartbreak. His eyes, filled with a genuine, almost palpable remorse, fixed on her. "Alara, I am so sorry," he stammered, his voice cracking. "About Whiskers. I never should have let it happen." Alara's internal world fractured. The carefully constructed walls around her emotions, fortified over decades, began to show hairline cracks. Could she believe him? Could she, after all these years, even contemplate forgiveness for a wound that had festered in the deepest recesses of her heart? The thought was an unwelcome intruder, stirring a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Her immediate response, however, was visceral. She fled. The sterile white walls of the veterinary clinic blurred into a panicked kaleidoscope as Alara rushed out, Whisper's carrier clutched to her chest. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to escape the suffocating weight of Arthur's gaze, the ghosts he had so carelessly conjured. Back in the relative sanctuary of her small apartment, the carefully curated quiet was shattered by the cacophony of her own thoughts. Whisper, sensing her profound distress, nudged his head against her hand, his soft purr a gentle, unwavering comfort. He was a small, furry anchor in a sea of turbulent memories. Alara buried her face in his soft fur, the warmth of his small body a stark contrast to the icy grip of her fear. She grappled with the resurfacing pain, the raw agony of being an 8-year-old girl. Her trust shattered, her beloved Whiskers vanished. Her desire for closure warred fiercely with the ingrained terror of being hurt again. A battle she had fought countless times before, always retreating into the safety of isolation. Days turned into a torturous blur. Arthur, it seemed, was not to be easily deterred. Notes, written in a shaky, almost desperate hand, began appearing tucked under her door. Each one was a plea, a fragment of an apology, a desire to explain fully what had happened. He mentioned details only someone deeply involved would know, slowly, painstakingly, chipping away at the rigid resolve Alara had maintained for so long. He spoke of the day Whiskers disappeared, of Lila's uncharacteristic sullenness, of the difficult conversation he'd had with his own daughter. A more detailed, painful recollection of that childhood incident began to form in Alara's mind, pieced together by Arthur's subtle hints and her own suppressed memories. Lila, her childhood friend, had promised to care for Whiskers. Alara remembered the earnestness in Lila's eyes, the solemn vow she had made. But then, Lila's family had moved unexpectedly, a sudden, disruptive upheaval. Arthur's notes hinted at the truth. Whiskers hadn't been lost. He had been left behind, or worse, given to a shelter without Alara's knowledge or consent. Arthur had been aware of Lila's plan, a desperate attempt by a child to sever a bond she envied, but he had felt powerless to intervene, leading to decades of silent guilt that now weighed heavily on his conscience. He also revealed that Whiskers had been found by a kind family, a detail that provided a sliver of unexpected relief, a faint glimmer of peace for the cat she had mourned for so long. Arthur's latest note contained an even more startling revelation. He mentioned that Lila had always felt immense guilt and had tried to find Alara over the years, a fact that both infuriated and confused Alara. He also recalled a unique marking on Whiskers, a small, almost imperceptible black spot on his left ear, a detail that caught Alara's attention with a jolt. Whisper, oblivious to the turmoil he was helping to navigate, continued to be Alara's unwavering companion. His presence, his soft purrs, His insistent demands for affection became a source of unexpected strength. He mirrored the unconditional love Alara had craved for so long, a love untainted by human complexities. She started to see a path towards healing, a winding, uncertain path that Whisper, in his quiet way, was helping her walk. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer felt so raw, so insurmountable. Then, another note from Arthur arrived, almost as an afterthought. He mentioned a local animal rescue that Lila had volunteered at for years, and a specific cat there that, he said, reminded him uncannily of Alara's old pet. The details sent a profound sense of unease and curiosity coursing through Alara, a strange blend of dread and a desperate, burgeoning hope. Driven by Arthur's tantalizing hints, Alara found herself standing before the unassuming entrance of the local animal rescue. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of hope and dread. Each step felt heavy, burdened by the weight of 2 decades of unresolved pain and a burgeoning, terrifying possibility. She wasn't just looking for a cat, she was searching for a phantom from her past, a ghost of betrayal, and perhaps a fragment of herself she thought was lost forever. Inside, the air hummed with the soft murmurs of animals and the hushed efficiency of dedicated workers. A kind-faced woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile approached her. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice soothing. This was Sarah, Alara quickly learned, a dedicated rescue worker whose passion for animals radiated from her. As they spoke, Alara carefully probed, asking about long-term volunteers. Sarah mentioned a Lily who had recently left, her tone laced with a touch of regret. The name echoed in Alara's mind, a faint, unsettling familiarity, yet she couldn't quite place it, a frustrating itch just beyond her mental reach. Finally, Alara made her way to the cat enclosures, her gaze sweeping over the furry faces, each one a silent story. Then she saw him, tucked away in a quiet corner, an older, regal-looking cat with eyes that held the wisdom of years. And there it was, the small, almost imperceptible black spot on his left ear, precisely as Arthur had described. Her breath hitched. Could it truly be? The sheer overwhelming possibility stole her voice. This cat, named Shadow by the shelter, was wary, his ears swiveling in suspicion, but as Alara knelt, extending a tentative hand, he slowly, cautiously, allowed her touch. A deep, resonant purr rumbled in his chest, a sound that resonated deep within Alara's soul, awakening dormant memories. Later that day, the raw emotion of the reunion still clinging to her, Alara found herself confronting Arthur again, the lingering questions demanding answers. Seeing her vulnerable state, her carefully constructed emotional barriers crumbling, Arthur finally confessed the full, unvarnished truth. The words tumbled out, heavy with years of guilt. Lila, he admitted, had never lost Whiskers. She had deliberately given him away, driven by a corrosive jealousy of the profound bond Alara shared with the animal. The revelation was a gut punch, far worse than the accidental loss Alara had always imagined. Arthur then revealed an even more insidious detail. Lila had been at this very rescue, secretly watching Alara. He had tried to cover for Lila, out of a misguided sense of loyalty to his own daughter, but the weight of his deceit had become too much to bear. The confession shattered Alara. The initial betrayal was a wound that had festered for years, but the deliberate malice, the calculated cruelty, and Lila's continued deception were crushing. Her carefully rebuilt trust issues reignited with a vengeance, threatening to consume her entirely. Whisper, sensitive to her distress, curled tightly against her, a silent, comforting presence, a steadfast anchor in the tumultuous storm of her emotions. As if to twist the knife further, an anonymous, taunting message arrived on her phone, clearly from Lila. It was chillingly direct, a stark warning. Leave the past buried. A cold dread settled over Alara. Lila wasn't just a figure from her past. She was actively watching, manipulating, a shadowy presence still lurking in the periphery of Alara's life. The realization sent a shiver down her spine, a dramatic hook pulling her deeper into a mystery she now knew she had to solve, not just for herself, but for the ghost of a cat named Whiskers. The anonymous message, a digital whisper of malice, ignited a fierce resolve within Alara. The pain of betrayal, once a dull ache, now sharpened into a burning determination. She wasn't just seeking answers anymore. She was demanding justice, or at the very least, the unvarnished truth. The thought of Lila, lurking in the shadows, pulling strings, was an unbearable affront. Whisper, sensing the shift in her human's demeanor, rubbed affectionately against her leg, a soft, purring engine of quiet encouragement. In that moment, Alara felt an unfamiliar surge of power. Her small, furry companion seemed to empower her, reminding her of the unconditional love she deserved. Alara meticulously reread Lila's chilling text, dissecting every word, every nuance. The veiled threat, the possessiveness over the past, spoke volumes. She cross-referenced it with Arthur's confession, piecing together Lila's movements, her habits, her possible whereabouts. Alara remembered Sarah mentioning that Lila had volunteered at the rescue. It wasn't a huge leap to consider that Lila might still be involved with animals, perhaps even professionally. A desperate late-night internet search, filtering by local animal shelters and recent staff changes, yielded a surprising result. A Lily Peterson was listed as a new manager at a smaller, lesser-known animal care facility just across town. The name was close enough, the timing suspicious. The next morning, armed with a carefully constructed facade of nonchalance, Alara visited the new shelter. It was smaller, less organized than the rescue, but the love for animals was palpable. She observed from a distance, watching Lily Peterson interact with the animals. Her movements surprisingly gentle, her voice soft and reassuring. It created a strange moral paradox for Alara. How could someone capable of such calculated cruelty also possess such genuine affection for creatures? This wasn't the monster she had imagined, but a complex, unsettling figure. Alara chose a quiet moment, when Lily was alone in an office, reviewing adoption papers. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anticipation and fear. She walked in, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Lila," she began, the name a sharp, unexpected sound in the quiet room. Lily Peterson froze, her head snapping up, eyes wide with a mixture of recognition and dread. Lila initially denied everything, her face a mask of feigned ignorance and hurt, her voice rising in a defensive crescendo. "I think you have me mistaken for someone else," she insisted, her gaze flickering towards the door. But Alara was relentless. She presented the evidence, a carefully constructed verbal assault. Arthur's confession, the specific markings of shadow, the anonymous message, its words echoing in the confined space. "You told me to leave the past buried," Alara stated, her voice devoid of emotion. "But you never buried it yourself, did you?" Cornered, stripped of her defenses, Lila's composure shattered. The carefully constructed facade crumbled, revealing the raw, trembling woman beneath. Tears welled in her eyes, silent at first, then bursting forth in a torrent. She confessed to the childhood betrayal, the crushing weight of jealousy and a deep-seated insecurity that had poisoned her actions. She admitted to watching Alara, a twisted mix of guilt and resentment fueling her surveillance. "Shadow," she whispered, her voice choked with sobs. "I adopted him years ago, from the very shelter you found him in. I never knew, not until Arthur mentioned it. I swear." The twist was unexpected, a discordant note in Alara's symphony of anger. Lila's dedication to animal welfare, it seemed, was her way of atoning, a desperate attempt to wash away the stains of her past. She tearfully expressed a desire to make amends, but acknowledged the immeasurable depth of her wrongs. Alara stood stunned, the complexity of the revelation leaving her reeling. This wasn't the clear-cut villain she had envisioned. Lila, through her tears, begged for forgiveness, not for her own sake, but for Shadow, for the possibility of Alara finding some semblance of peace. She offered to help Alara reconnect with Shadow, a vulnerability Alara never anticipated. A fragile bridge extended across the chasm of their shared painful history. Alara stood in stunned silence, the air thick with Lila's raw confession and desperate plea. The shock of the twist, the unexpected vulnerability from the woman who had caused her so much pain, left her reeling. Could she forgive someone who had inflicted such deep wounds, even if their remorse now seemed genuine? The question echoed in the cavern of her heart, a painful, insistent whisper. Whisper, her steadfast companion, seemed to sense her internal turmoil, nudging her hand with his soft head, his purr a gentle, consistent rhythm against the chaos within. His unwavering trust in Alara became a silent lesson, a reminder of the unconditional love she had found, a stark contrast to the betrayal she had endured. Later that evening, Alara sought out Arthur. He listened patiently as she recounted the confrontation, his eyes filled with a familiar regret. He reiterated Lila's genuine change of heart, confirming her years of quiet dedication to animal welfare as a form of penance. "She truly has changed, Alara," he said, his voice soft but firm. "It doesn't excuse what she did, but she spent a lifetime trying to make it right, in her own way." His words, combined with Whisper's gentle presence, began to chip away at Alara's hardened resolve. The image of Lila's tear-streaked face, her desperate plea for Shadow's sake, played on a loop in Alara's mind. The next day, with a heavy heart and a glimmer of fragile hope, Alara agreed to meet Lila at the animal rescue. The reunion with Shadow was a moment suspended in time. Lila stood back, giving them space, her gaze fixed on Alara with an almost painful intensity. Shadow, an older, regal tabby, initially regarded Alara with the wary detachment of a seasoned street cat. But as Alara knelt, extending a hesitant hand, speaking softly, calling his old name, a flicker of recognition sparked in his emerald eyes. He cautiously approached, sniffing her outstretched fingers, then, with a slow, deliberate movement, rubbed his head against her palm, a deep, rumbling purr vibrating through his body. It was a sound Alara hadn't heard in decades, a melody of home and belonging. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the edges of the world. This reconnection was a powerful symbol of healing, a testament to the enduring, unspoken bond between humans and animals. Alara didn't offer full forgiveness immediately. The scars ran too deep. But she agreed to a conditional one, a tentative truce. She asked Lila for active commitment, not just words. "You need to publicly acknowledge what you did," Alara stated, her voice quiet but firm. "Not to the world, but to me. And you need to actively work to regain my trust. It won't be easy." Lila, her eyes still red-rimmed, nodded fiercely, desperate for this chance at redemption. In the quiet moments that followed, Alara realized something profound. Her deep love for cats wasn't just a coping mechanism for past trauma, but a pathway to understanding unconditional love, a balm for her wounded spirit. Whisper and Shadow, in their own unique ways, had become living symbols of her arduous journey from isolation to connection. They were a constant reminder that healing was possible, that trust, once broken, could be painstakingly rebuilt. A new idea began to form, a way to channel their shared past into a positive future. Alara, Lila, and Arthur, bound by a complex web of history and a newfound fragile understanding, decided to collaborate. They would launch a community initiative, Whispers of Hope. Its mission would be twofold: to help lost pets find their way home, and to educate owners about responsible pet care, preventing future heartaches like Alara's own. This would be their collective act of atonement, a shared endeavor built on the foundation of hope. As they began to plan, sketching out ideas and discussing logistics, Alara caught Lila's eye. There, reflected in Lila's gaze, was a genuine spark of empathy, a reflection of their shared love for animals that might finally bridge the fractured chasm of their past, paving the way for a future neither of them had dared to imagine. The launch of Whispers of Hope was a resounding success, a testament to the power of shared purpose and the desire for healing. The community rallied around Alara, Lila, and Arthur, their combined efforts creating a ripple effect of goodwill. They organized adoption drives, set up microchipping clinics, and hosted educational workshops on responsible pet ownership. Each event brought them closer, transforming their fragile reconciliation into a robust partnership built on mutual respect and a shared passion for animal welfare. Alara, once a guarded and solitary figure, blossomed. She found herself laughing more freely, her eyes losing their shadowed intensity. The walls she had so carefully constructed around her heart began to crumble, not in a destructive collapse, but in a gradual, gentle opening. She formed a genuine friendship with Sarah, the kind rescue worker, finding in her a confidant who understood the profound bond between humans and their animal companions. Through whispers of hope and her interactions with countless animal lovers, Alara's trust in humanity was slowly but surely restored. One person and one grateful cat at a time, she discovered that the world was full of good people, just as there were good cats, and that her past betrayals, while painful, did not define the entirety of human nature. Lila, too, underwent a profound transformation. The weight of her past mistakes, once a crushing burden, now fueled her dedication. She became a passionate and articulate advocate for animal rights, using her own story as a cautionary tale of how jealousy and insecurity could lead to regrettable actions. Her work with Whispers of Hope was not just a job, it was her penance, her purpose, her way of ensuring no other animal suffered the fate of Alara's first cat. Her unwavering commitment and genuine remorse eventually earned Alara's respect, and in time, a true, albeit complex friendship. They learned to navigate their shared history, finding common ground in their love for creatures great and small. Arthur, who had carried the burden of his inaction for decades, finally found peace. Witnessing the healing he had helped set in motion, seeing Alara and Lila work together brought a profound sense of relief. He became a quiet mentor to them, offering wisdom and practical guidance, his presence a steadying force in their sometimes turbulent journey. His eyes, once clouded with regret, now shone with a gentle contentment. Alara realized that the psychology of people who love cats was far more intricate than simple affection. It was often rooted in a deep desire for unconditional love, a balm for past wounds, and a profound reflection of their own capacity for empathy and connection. Cats, with their independent spirits and discerning affection, offered a unique form of companionship that mirrored the complexity of human emotions. They demanded respect, offered comfort, and taught patience, becoming silent therapists for wounded souls. Whisper and Shadow, her constant companions, were more than just pets. They were living testaments to her journey from isolation to connection, from despair to hope. Alara's home, once a quiet sanctuary for one, was now filled with warmth, not just from the contented purrs of Whisper and Shadow, but from the laughter of friends and the hum of newfound purpose. The scars of the past remained, indelible marks of a difficult journey, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as reminders of her resilience, her capacity for forgiveness, and the profound healing power of love. She looked forward to a future where love, trust, and compassion for all living beings prevailed. A future she was actively building with every paw print and every shared smile. Alara sat on her porch, surrounded by purring cats, a soft, genuine smile gracing her lips. The echoes of a distant, sorrowful meow had finally transformed into a vibrant symphony of hope, a melody of redemption that resonated deep within her soul.